Getting worse and worse by the day. Getting worse and worse by the
Okay.
day. And every bit of testimony I hear, it's getting harder and harder for him to get off. I think his chances are well below 50% of beating these charges.
Mm.
And you and I talked about this last week. Perhaps there is a way this jury looks at this, doesn't believe certain witnesses, and does what we call a compromise verdict. We're going to convict on some things that are lesser charges and maybe not on racketeering. That's perhaps something that might happen here. But I got to tell you, Stephen A., what I'm seeing here is this racketeering case being built very well. That's the main part of this case. When you
Mhm.
have witnesses coming up and talking about he did this violence, he did that violence, we expected that. What I think is really interesting to me is how these witnesses are testifying that he would use that. I'm going to say this about you if you don't do this. I brought a gun. You're coming with me. You're going to do this with Kid Cudi. You're then going to talk to him and tell him not to talk to police. This is exactly what people say happens in RICO cases. And you got a jury who might be looking at it like, well, RICO cases, I think of mob cases. I think people have to understand, what do you think happens in those cases? It's a mob boss allegedly telling somebody else to do this, do that. I'm not getting my hands dirty. You're going to do all these things and I'm directing. And Stephen A., there's another part of this that I think might resonate with this jury that I think we have to keep our eye on. These are women, in particular, young women, coming forward talking about the forced labor, the violence perpetrated on them, the ways in which they were forced to do things at gunpoint, if you believe Capricorn Clark, if you talk about what Capricorn Clark talked about, the things that he would say about them. Will jurors look at this and say, he's treating women like this? I mean, when we think about a mob case, we think different men trying to prove things to other men. I wonder if there will be a dynamic of this, of these young women, in Mia's case, somebody in their 20s trying to work in the music business and all of a sudden realizing they're in these situations.